Wonderful. There she is. Very pretty. Very nice to meet you virtually.
Likewise. I know. It's great to be here.
That color looks that hair.
So for those of you who are our regular community, we all know that Chart Your Course comes around once a month. This month it's very special because we have a presenter that hasn't presented for our Vessel Health events before, Halli Bourne. And we also have, this is a different day than we usually have it on the third Wednesday. So maybe that's what happened. I don't know, but we're just going to let that go. Just put that out in the universe and let it go away. But Halli has a business of her own. And if you all saw the flyer, we're all excited because she has some wonderful meditation and coaching practices that she manages and is going to share with us. So I'm going to let you take it away because I know we're losing time.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I tend to think when these things happen, they're for good reason. So we're just going to assume it's all in our favor and we're just going to roll with it. And what's nice is that we're not flustered. And that's one of the things that meditation really helps us with. So I'll just kind of dive in here. First of all, I'm really excited to be here with all of you. Meditation is one of my favorite topics because it's had such an impact in my life, and I've seen it really change lives because it is so integral to the path of the spiritual warrior. And I'll talk more about that kind of throughout this time that we have together, about what that means to be a spiritual warrior. I feel like the world is kind of in a spiral right now, and I have a mission with the work that I do to really call in and support spiritual warriors because we need a heart-centered shift in our paradigm. There's so much corruption and avarice and megalomania going on right now, and the climate crisis. And so I feel really called in my work to really attract people who are open and searching and who've likely had some really powerful experience in their life. That can be trauma, that can be a spiritual experience. Sometimes it's both at the same time. To bring forth these practices, which really help to connect us to the divine and the invisible realms. So
there's got to be some way to.
What was that? Did someone say something? No?
I don't know.
Okay, I thought I heard a question. Well, I wanted to ask, what is it that, I'd love to hear from you, what is it that you want to know about meditation? What do you come here curious about? And you can chat it if you want to, or just say it if you're not on mute. What do you want to know about meditation? Hello.
Halli, I'll go ahead and say something. I personally just want to know how we can create the power that it has, how we can actually focus in on that power and use it to our advantage.
That's beautiful. Okay, anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So meditation is something that's still kind of new to me. I've seen the great benefit of meditation and having a meditative practice daily. I'm still new, so I guess my question is, what is the best practices to start? What are best, I guess, practices to get yourself in that space of meditation?
Great question. Okay, good. Other things people want to know? We've got a really chatty group here, I can tell. Okay, so let me keep those things in mind. maybe you don't even know that you have a question, but you're here for some reason. So probably what I have prepared is for you, because that's why it's coming through. So one of the things I really want to do before, and let me tip this down a little bit, it is kind of set an historical context for what I'm going to talk about today, which is the gift of sourcing within. So we've been in the Age of Reason, which started about 400 years ago, for a while now. And the Age of Reason has been kind of an exception within the long trajectory of civilization, where we have regularly walked alongside or in relationship with the mysteries. And what I mean by the mysteries is the invisible world where the divine exists, where we acknowledge different layers of dimensions of reality, and what used to be called magic and ancestral worship and environmental respect is now known essentially as quantum physics and environmental awareness, and we're in this climate crisis. So in the Age of Reason, while we've been getting liberated from oppressive religion and from absurd superstition, the shadow side of this and then the downside of this overly rational mind is that it's sort of sublimated that invisible realm part of us and the mystery and the divine. And it's kind of robbing us from living from more of a heart-centered place, because there's an imbalance now. We've kind of gone the other way. I feel like we've gone too far. And so I want to contextualize talking about meditation in this realm of trying to bring back some balance, because I don't think it's natural for us to have just a rational relationship with reality. It seems to, especially in the West, making us feel really isolated, overly externalized in the way that we live, and keeping us really satisfied. Welcome if someone just came on. So let's talk a little bit about research that has been made possible through the last 30, 40 years with the MRI invention. Some research neurologically that's showing us the benefits of meditation. One of the things we know as a result of our research now is that we think on average 60,000 thoughts a day. And those 60,000 thoughts, there's only about 5% of them that are new thoughts. So the reality is there's always kind of this background noise of repetitive thoughts, the content of which often comes from our internalized experiences, from the external world, these reflections that we take in and construct a self from. And unfortunately, that stream that's always playing in the background has so much judgment in it, woundedness in it, incorrect conclusions about who we are, and that those 60,000 thoughts always keeps us kind of on, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of at resistance with ourselves and in conflict with ourselves. And because there's so much busyness going on in the West, there's this tendency to always distract and never really listen to the content of what's in the background. There was this study I'm remembering now that was done in 2010 at the Harvard Medical School that had people track where their thoughts went when they wandered. And more than 75% of the people who participated in that study said that their minds went to anxiety and worry, and that was really kind of the feeling of what was in the background playing. And you probably relate to some of that. And the other thing that they found in a similar study was that those thoughts of anxiety and worry have a physiological response, right? So that increases the heart rate, that creates a tightness in the body. It keeps you from breathing deeply and living in a relaxed way, because we're always kind of in the future and not in the present. So that research, I think, is really important to think about. So let me take a sip of water here, and then I'm going to tell you a little story. So you're perhaps wondering how it is I know what I know and how I came up with some of these ideas. And I really want to tell you because it's an interesting story. And it really started off a journey for me almost 30 years ago. So just kind of to set the stage, I was 21 years old. I was really troubled and pretty traumatized from experiences earlier in my life. I had also recently broken away from my really extreme Christian background, and was trying to forge a new path with my personal sense of what spirituality meant. And I was trying to find some way to feel peaceful in the midst of always having the sense that something was pursuing me or chasing me. And so I had this real conflict going on. I have since learned that people who have really difficult childhoods and have had a lot of pain and suffering in their past tend to be really motivated when it comes to practices like meditation, when they feel like there might be a spiritual out. That was certainly what motivated me. So there was a day in 1992, just 21 years old, with all of this in the background and really trying to make my way. I had recently moved from my childhood home, halfway through college to a new state, trying to find my way. And I hydroplaned into a tree and horseshoed around it and broke both of my legs and my pelvis. And everybody I talked to after that really said that I should have died. But that's not the end of the story, obviously, because I'm here with you today talking about all of this. And because I had shattered my both of my legs, both of my femurs and my pelvis so severely, they didn't really offer me much hope that I was going to walk again. So that's the interesting part of the story, is that I knew something when they told me that. I knew something that they didn't know because of this experience I had on that day. So on that day, I was, as you can imagine, with the trauma of the car accident and the extent of my injuries, that I was kind of moving in and out of consciousness all day. There was a lot of fear and confusion. I remember just kind of waking up in one place, faces all around me, passing out, going under again. I do remember waking up in a helicopter at some point, later found out I got life flighted, and kind of missed out on that helicopter ride, but I sure did get billed for it. So just kind of in and out of consciousness that day. And they did tell me later too that that day they almost lost me. And I couldn't tell you at what point during that day that happened. But what's interesting about hearing that is that I remember that moment when they almost lost me. So I had lost a lot of blood. They were trying to stabilize me. And I remember just feeling so tired, like this soul weary, bone deep kind of tired, where I just wanted to fall asleep and everybody leave me alone and just let me sleep forever. And then I remember hovering above my body and kind of at a distance, kind of up and out, looking down on this flurry of activity with it. I think I remember about 9 people down there trying to keep her alive. And there was this sense of great distance from the life on the table. And I was no longer identifying with an I or a me, but suddenly was feeling part of something that I called we. And we were feeling like there was a lot of panic in the room, a lot going on. And we understood that the personality, the being on the table, was doing something really specific, living life the way that only Halli Bourne could live it. And that there was important information and feedback that came from her living through that identity. And at the same time, we understood that there was really no consequence of whether or not she lived or died. There was just this complete detachment because we understood infinity and timelessness. So we looked down at this tableau unfolding of great panic and drama, and we say to ourselves, why are they making such a fuss? And then I have this distinct memory of turning swiftly to the left and going. I also remember being very convicted at the same time as the being on the table of having no tether to this life. And we understood that she wasn't attached anymore. So one of the things that I learned through that experience was an experiential level of the invisible realms, and that there was more than just the ego, that there was more than just who my parents were, where I grew up, what traumas I had suffered, what successes I had, and despite of that, it really showed me that there's this broader, more expansive reality through which we can experience life, which gives meaning that's not dependent on how many followers we have on social media, or how many clients I get in a year, or even if I'm really successful in my business and have lots of attractive friends. All of this is so external and very uncertain, and it's a way of living that really puts us at a distance from who we really are, the true self. So what happened next was I left the hospital just 8 days earlier in a wheelchair, and some really amazing friends of mine took me in and paid the bills while my primary job became to heal and to really focus on walking again. And I was endowed with this incredible, absurd optimism. And even though the docs were just like, hey, we don't really know how this is going to go, I got out of the wheelchair in 3 months with a lot of hard work, and was on crutches and cane, and used a cane for another 3 months. And when I got rid of the crutches and the cane, I started going to yoga. And that was really where I got exposed to meditation. And it began an odyssey for me. During that time, I became an expert at self-hypnosis and visualization. I'm sure that's among many of the reasons that I've walked kind of despite all the odds. Learning how to really focus the mind in a particular way, and the whole mind over matter thing was something I experienced directly. And to be walking around 6 months later where no one could really tell what had happened to me, aside from the scarring on my face that was still pretty fresh, is pretty incredible. So after 6 months, the odyssey began through me studying the mysteries, and it started with yoga. Later, I went on to get advanced level certification in both yoga and meditation. I got a massage license. I got a bachelor's degree in theater, and had my own company for a while for people to really express that deep sense of being who they are. With organic shows, that was amazing. I certified in mastery level Reiki. I got certified in craniosacral therapy. I studied dance and Aikido. Now I'm getting a master's in studio art. And so all of this is within my own personal experience of really trying to find the truth of being, what we're really doing here, what this is about. And I really feel that life is for its own sake. So there is no reason to do anything other than find a way to really connect in a truly meaningful way that shows that we are not separate, that we are truly all one, that we are part of this world, we are part of the cosmos, we are part of one another. which can help us really live from a center of love and respect that doesn't have to do with our tribes or our skin color or how much money we have, but has more to do with the way that we're able to be present, to connect with those mysteries and be guided by these invisible forces. So in 2017, I was able to finally launch a program that really incorporated all these years of study. And it was really the program that I wish I'd had from the beginning. And while it sources deeply from yogic and the deeper practices of yoga philosophy, it also includes the mysteries. It includes the way that thoughts are creative. It includes the way that we can quiet the ego enough to be able to listen to the universe and whatever words you use for that, but to be able to open a place inside of ourselves where we can listen and receive and be guided by these forces without needing to know what's coming next, without needing to control and manipulate everything, which has also been kind of an outgrowth of this age of reason, where we use the mind to figure everything out rather than letting ourselves be quiet and access the heart. So when we're talking about the West, we really can't talk about it without discussing the reality that we live in a capitalistic patriarchy. And there's a role that's set for all of us within that has a lot to do with our externalization of who we think we are, like this constructed living that comes from our accomplishments. It comes from who we know, our associations. It comes from our cars, our 401ks, our capital gains. You know, it's all this something out there that capitalistic patriarchy requires us to become. Whereas living from an internal life, so from the inside out, we're instead sourcing from the fact that we exist, that we don't need to earn respect, we don't need to earn happiness, that we are entitled to those things simply because we exist. We are these things already. We are happiness. We are respect. So I wanted to talk for a moment about signs that you might be living an externalized life. And I wanted to see if maybe you relate to this. So there's just 4 signs that I thought we could look at with externalized living. So one thing that I see a lot with, especially the female clients that I love working with, is an over concern with other people's comfort and happiness, feeling somehow responsible for making sure everyone else is okay, often at the expense of yourself. You might recognize that in yourself. The second one, being really sensitive about what other people think about you, or kind of preoccupied with what people think about you. And you might find that in your quiet moments, you're kind of replaying conversations you had with people, and you're wondering, oh, did I say the wrong thing? Oh crap, they must have thought I was crazy, or God, I shouldn't have said that. That was right. So there's this preoccupation with things that happened in the past that somehow negatively reflect on who you think you are. So this is, again, an external validation that constructs the self rather than living from the outside or from the inside out in a way that's responsive, connected, and authentic. Okay, the third one has to do a bit with living in a victimized role where you feel like the world is unsafe. And so that causes you to kind of retract and limit your choices, feeling like you're not allowed to be happy, or feeling like it's just not safe to be who you are, because there's like this internalized judgment that you're not okay in the world. So that's another example of externalized living that really keeps us small and keeps us contracted. And finally, the fourth one is really unique to capitalism, where you fear slowing down. You feel really identified with your productivity. And this is kind of in spite of the fact that you feel tired and burned out, and really that there isn't enough that you could do to meet the requirements to be good enough. There's like this underpinning of unworthiness. And this is kind of the demon of capitalism, is that it's always driving us to consume and produce, which keeps us in this spiral of never really slowing down, tuning in, breathing, relaxing, and experiencing the magic of a simple present moment. Feeling the breath moving in the body, seeing amazing sunlight, hearing the song of a bird, that it doesn't have anything to do with what we put out there, but has more to do with who we are and just appreciating the moment. So kind of a comparison of externalized living as compared to internalized living or internal living. So sourcing from within, which of course is the subject of our talk today. Let me check my notes. Okay, hey, do you guys have pen and paper? I was thinking we might do a meditation. I'd like to take you through a visualization / meditation and then have you do a quick writing afterwards. Yeah, okay. If you don't, you can just kind of sit quietly and reflect on what you're feeling and experiencing. So it doesn't matter a whole lot, but yeah, it'll just be really nice for you to have that. So before I dive into taking you into a direct experience, does anybody have any questions or any comments about anything you've heard so far? You're gonna make me do all the talking, aren't you? Excuse me, I'm gonna blow my nose.
Halli, I just want to be clear on the four different things you touched on. The victimization, feeling of limited choices, all of the fear of slowing down. That was, and then what was the second one?
The second one is about being overly sensitive about what other people think.
Oh, okay, okay. Did everybody get all of those? Or was that important that you wanted to know?
I think I see some nodding.
Okay. Do you?
You went back on mute, Sally. Can't hear you, love.
Are those important things that they need to know before we start the meditation? Those four?
It's more for people's edification, to kind of measure if they feel like they're living in an externalized way,
Mm-hmm.
and to recognize kind of what that looks like.
Okay, so those are kind of like four
Or like indicators, yeah.
indicators.
Just,
yeah, there you go.
Check in.
Okay.
Huh, is that me? You know, because that kind of externalized living causes dissatisfaction. It creates, it sets us up to be in resistance with reality, because so much of that is about trying to control things outside of us, which we just can't. So to kind of move from the outside to the inside means that we start to traffic with something we can control, which is our own reactivity and our responses. And in so doing, making choices about how we want to show up in the world. Because if we never slow down enough, and here's where meditation becomes really important, if we never slow down enough, we don't really understand the content of what's informing us, that physiological response of things we don't even know we're thinking. And that chronic pattern of anxiety and worry and fear that I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, everyone's not happy, I can slow down when everyone else is happy, when the kids grow up, when the dogs move to heaven, or whatever that is, right? And meanwhile, we're missing out on what it could feel like to be fully present in a life that's organic and unfolding, that we don't really need to manipulate. We can actually show up for it and even enjoy the difficulties and the challenges and, the inevitable loss that life brings, so being able to shift from the chronicness of that background noise and into an intentionality where you learn how to recognize and become aware of what else is going on out there. And all of it's coming in from here.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, good. Give me a second. There was something else I wanted to say to you all about that. Oh yes, this is it. So with studying all of these different fields and really looking for through lines and connections through them, every single mystery cult and religion from history through all civilization, and I just finished 2 semesters of art history, which is really interesting because it turns out to be more of a study of the mysteries, because that's what funded the arts, was the need to have reflections of their spiritual life through statues and interpretations of the invisible realm. Meditation is through all of them. Every single one has some kind of discipline where it's about quieting the mind and moving out of thinking and into feeling, into presence, into expanded awareness. And that to me shows me the power of meditation, because it's lasted the ages. And here we are in a pretty secular world now, and meditation is sustained. It's still there, even really stripped down and secularized. It's still there, that there's this practice where we can slow down and tune in and be able to connect to the invisible world. So I'm going to give you a little experience of that. And I really want to kind of take you into your mind so that you can become aware of what's playing back there in the stream. So if you would, I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable seat with a straight spine. And the reason why is we want the body to be active and aware and not slouchy. When we slouch, it also affects our headspace, our consciousness. So to sit with a lifted spine, and then if you're comfortable doing so, letting your eyes close. If that doesn't feel safe to you, you can always just kind of unfocus the eyes on an object in front of you. And take a few breaths and really make this shift from thinking and reflecting on the outside world. So you're shifting out of what's around you and into feeling, into what's happening inside you. Beginning to slow your breath so you can make that shift, breathing in and out through your nose. And just take a moment to recognize where tension is hanging out. And slowing and deepening your breath. And take a moment to really notice kind of the buzz that usually accompanies us when we first get still. Lots of thoughts, lots of energy and activation in the brain. Maybe some fidgeting. Maybe you feel a lot of pulsation through the body. Maybe you feel your heart rate. Just notice all of that as you tune in, really getting still here with yourself. And then I'm going to ask you to take a really deep breath in and out, slowing out that exhalation. And imagine with me that you're standing in the middle of a river, and this river has risen up to your thighs. And the river is moving very fast. And there's lots of junk in the river, lots of plastic and cups and all sorts of random things, shoes and industrial products, just floating down on either side of you. And sometimes they run into you. And you feel the power of the water pressing against your legs. You feel it kind of buffeting you to and fro. And you hear the rush of the water. You can hear it in your ears moving against you, moving around you. And there's a strong wind blowing against your face, against your arms, kind of moving you around. And you just feel a bit pummeled by all of these elements. You feel your feet in the shifting sands and find trouble finding solid ground. And you tolerate this for a while, just feeling buffeted from every direction by these forces. And then it occurs to you that you can walk to the shore. So with some effort, you turn towards the shore. And this turning towards the shore is represented by meditation. All of those forces pressing against you are those repetitive thoughts, that noise playing in the background, the constant anxiety, worry, dissatisfaction, unworthiness that's always sort of pelting you and running like trivia and trash alongside you. And as you walk towards the river, you start to notice that those forces are lessening. They're still going, but you're becoming less affected by them. And you've made a decision to turn away from them and walk towards a place of at least relative calm. And you walk towards the bank of the river. And you notice once you step out that there's a distance now between you and all these things happening at the river, the rushing, gushing water, the pelting wind, the stream of trivia and trash running along in the current. And you sit down on the grassy bank in a comfortable seat and you watch the river for a while. And you notice that you feel less assaulted. You notice that there's a sense of ease starting to dawn on you. Realizing that you don't have to be in the river, that you can actually step outside of it. And you become an observer, a dispassionate, indifferent observer, where you simply let yourself watch these forces without needing to involve yourself in the story, in the narrative, in the drama of it all. You don't have to tell this story about how rough it was in the river. You don't have to talk about all the things that were in the river. You don't have to talk about the cold chill that you felt with the wind against your face or the water soaking into your skin. You can simply watch all of these things. And as you watch it, the mind begins to calm. And you notice that the noise in the background is not quite as noisy. You notice that your breath starts to slow down. And that maybe there are these incremental spaces between your thoughts. And let yourself now be curious and interested as you become a watcher of your own mind. Feeling anchored in your body, letting your breath stay slow and deep. You begin to watch the mind, watching the thoughts move across the screen of your mind. You're not in the movie, you're watching the movie. And before long, you notice that the ego wants to get involved. It wants to tell its own story. And you simply move back to your breath and back to your observer status, slightly above and removed from all of the detritus running down through the river. And taking a deep breath in now, I'm going to invite you to open your eyes and grab your pen and paper, and write at the top of your paper, I am aware of, ... And then we're going to take 2 minutes, and I'm going to ask you to keep your pen connected to the paper the whole time, and just write in a stream of consciousness way everything you're aware of from the meditation and in this moment. And it doesn't have to be profound or great grammar. And if you run out of things to say, you can always write blah, blah, blah. But just let your heart just kind of free write about what you notice in this moment. And if you're not writing, you can just close your eyes if you want to, and just see what you can discern that you're aware of. What are you noticing? What are you experiencing in this moment? We'll just take another minute. All right, let's have you put your pens down. Would anyone like to share what you're aware of, or what that experience was like for you? Jean, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah. Towards the end, I felt a real sense of peace, but I also kept finding my mind trying to intrude and get my attention.
Right.
And then life interrupting, the phone rang, I heard my phone beeping because I have a text, and none of that's important, but it's really almost Pavlovian. It rings and you want to answer.
Right. Yeah.
And then just that I have a really strong desire that I really want to be able to ignore all that stuff and get more centered. But I have difficulty with it, and that's part of why I wanted to come tonight.
Yeah, beautiful. And I don't think anyone here would say that they don't also have a difficult time. And I think this is one of the things that happens when people want to meditate and they don't get the right support around it, is they give up too early, because the nature of the mind is to think. And one of the things we have to learn with the practice is being in relationship with the busyness of the mind, right? So before you can develop a non-reactivity to the ringing phone and the dogs barking, etc., you have to have a relationship with not reacting to your own reactivity, right? So it all starts again within and without, so that as you develop less reactivity around what you're thinking with that intruding mind, I like the way you said that, that then gets translated. It's like the meditation practice is the rehearsal, and then life is the show, right? You take it off your cushion and out into the world. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that, Jean. Yeah, we all have trouble, and it takes practice. They don't call it a discipline for no reason. Any other people have something you want to share or something you want to ask? No? Okay.
Just real quick, Hallie.
Oh, hey, Sally, yeah.
Hey, sorry. I just want to say that it was really, truly lovely, even though, you know, I mean, it's amazing how short of time that you can actually get to a place, even if it's not the ultimate place, but you can get to a different place where you feel that separation of whatever that other place was, whether it was somewhat anxious or somewhat, you know, feeling just pressured or tired or whatever those things, what we all go through on a daily basis at the end of our day.
Right.
So those are some of the things I experienced. I mean, I was more aware of my breath and my thoughts, or not having any thoughts really.
Nice.
And the emotions that go along with that are different, very different.
Yeah.
For me anyway, way different. And the calmness.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just think that's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're welcome. That's a great outcome, huh? And Jean, I'm glad you said that too, that there was a sense of peace that you were able to experience in the midst of that busy mind. And that's kind of what we're learning with this practice is how to be in the midst of life rather than waiting for the perfect conditions, which are never going to happen. They're just never going to happen because life keeps unfolding. And so if we can show up with ourselves in the midst of all of this, we learn how to be less reactive and more at peace with all of that as it's unfolding. Any other questions or anything else you want to share about that practice in your experience?
Anyone else? Denise, I know you practice, so it's kind of something that you on a regular basis experience. So that's a beautiful thing. But I know that you also have people on this call that do those meditations along with you.
Yes, and it was nice, and I it was kind of nice to be led through it rather than myself leading a session. So
Yeah,
because I actually got to not think so much and really visualize. You know, every once in a while I'd open my eye and make sure someone wasn't trying to sign in, but
administrative.
I know I kept looking too, and I saw someone leave and say goodbye. So
Right. See,
Yeah.
life is just unfolding. Yeah. And we learn how to show up in the midst of it happening. Great, Denise. Thank you. I'm so glad you got to experience that. So for those of you who are looking for guidance, I've got two things happening right now that I can offer to you. One is a group meditation program that's exclusively for women, and it starts on June 5th. It goes for 9 weeks. We meet once a week on Saturday mornings at 10, and that goes through to July 31st. We meet for 1 hour where there's some teaching, there's always a practice, and there's always a an integration from whatever we experienced the week before. So kind of supporting each other in the things that we're all learning. I've also got about 5 recorded audios that you can work with at home between sessions. So from the very beginning, you're encouraged to start a daily practice. We go from 5 minutes to 17 minutes to 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So we slowly are building up into daily practice. There's also a Facebook group that's private that we can all interact with each other in over the course of the training and between sessions. And at the end of the practice, so they say it takes just 8 weeks to really feel the benefits of meditation. Some of the things you're going to notice is that you're more aware, you're more responsive, you're less reactive, you have more of an ability to choose what you're going to get upset about and what you're going to be happy about. You're also going to be calmer, you're going to be more present, you're going to feel more authentic, and you're also going to have more brain matter, as well as just the whole system being more relaxed and aware. So that's the group meditation program. If you want more information, you can go to my website, hallibourne.com/workshops. And then in an ongoing way, I work with both men and women on a one-to-one basis with that same program. And all of my programs have some meditation component, but the 9-week program is the most basic and the most thorough at an introductory level. And information about that has all the benefits of the group meditation are at hallibourne.com/programs. So you could find information about that. If you just go to my website and start surfing, you'll find it on the programs page and the workshops page. And so learning incrementally how to kind of awaken to the awareness is how we start to learn to harness the power. Because before we're aware of what's going on in the background, we can't really have the power to change it and focus it. So Sally, what you were experiencing today in that meditation is that you start to find that there are spaces without thoughts, and something magical happens in those spaces where we start to realize we have choices in the way that we feel, that we're not just victims of our emotions and victims of our thoughts or circumstances, that we can actually choose how we show up in the world. And that's how we become a spiritual warrior. We become kind of fearless when we realize that we can sit with these thoughts that are sometimes very uncomfortable and be able to see through them through the practice of this daily technique. All right, well, we are out of time. In fact, we're over time, and I'm sorry about that. I'm so happy you all showed up today, and I welcome your thoughts and comments and your questions. My email address, if you wanted to drop me a note, is really easy, Halli@hallibourne.com, and that's HALLIBOURNE, like the Bourne identity. So don't mess with me, right? Because Jason Bourne's my cousin. Just kidding. So anyway, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to work with you if I can help you. Again, I'm here to support spiritual warriors and help us all come into a paradigm where we really understand that we can live through a place of love, that we can live through a place of respect, and that we can experience magic in a really ordinary, simple way. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here today. We'll say namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you so much, Haley. We really, or Hallie, we really enjoyed it, and we'd love to do this again. And please, everyone, we'd love to hear your feedback. You're familiar with the meditation that we have. So please, yeah, I look forward to hearing feedback from you, and I'll share that with Hallie as well.
Great, thank you. Be well, please take good care of yourselves, and please be safe as always. We're coming on to the other side of all of this.
Yes.
All right, take good care. I hope to see you all later.